It's a Wonderful Life is about a man stuck in a life he never asked for, haunted by the fear of a wasted life, the fear of being a failure, and the desperation that leads a man to end it all. Credit to the critical drinker for the beautiful wording on that one. It was so perfect I had to take it. In this video, I'll briefly be talking about It's a Wonderful Life by Frank Capra. This movie probably deserves a much longer and better analysis than I'm about to give it, but I'll do my best to share just a few reasons why I love this movie. First thing that I think makes this movie great is its premise. The premise is an inversion on the classic Christmas story, A Christmas Carol. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for A Christmas Carol, and have recently watched The Muppets Christmas Carol, which I recommend, so it's no surprise I like It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life turns A Christmas Carol on its head. Instead of a selfish protagonist, we have a completely selfless hero. He is surpassed by his family and friends, stuck in a job that gives him no happiness or meaning, but does it diligently to save the people of the town from the clutches of a greedy businessman who is the antagonist named Mr. Potter. In A Christmas Carol, Scrooge has a series of guides that help him to see that he must be selfless in order to gain the love of his fellow man. Here, George Bailey has the love of his town, but in a single day, George's company is on the brink of failure. He makes his family cry in an abusive episode against them, and random people on the street scream at him and physically abuse him. George is pushed to his limits. He decides that he's worth more dead than alive, as his life insurance would cover his debts and allow his family to continue living their lives in peace. He is visited by a guardian angel who saves him from suicide. His angel shows him that he's worth more alive than dead. George realizes that without his selfishness, the town becomes a chaotic, mean, and miserable place, dominated by the business interests of Mr. Potter, the selfish Scrooge of this story. He leaves the angel and is back in his body, begging to live again, and his wish is granted.
I want to live again! I want to live again! I want to live again. Please, God, let me live again.
His depression and suicidal thoughts yield to joy that he can see his family and friends again. In this elation, his friends burst in his home, offering to pitch in to save him from bankruptcy. The kindness and selflessness of one man, slowly built up over 90 minutes of introduction, pays off big time in the final act of the story, with the generosity repaid with cash, smiles, laughs, and songs. A true Merry Christmas. Next, also in the last act, Capra takes this film to the next level with directing the collapse of one man's life. With 90 minutes of careful characterization, George Bailey's life seemingly comes to an end in a day, representing the fragility of the whole thing. In the moments before George resolves to kill himself, Capra executes the paranoia, sadness, depression, and desperation of that experience perfectly. The claustrophobia of the scenes, the rapid succession of mental and physical threats, and the performance of all the actors. It's done to perfection and with sensitivity. We feel the pain of George as he loses everything he loves quickly and gives up on himself. There's no effort to minimize his problems or poke fun at his character. No cynicism, no silliness, just empathy and respect for George. The film takes itself so seriously and doesn't waste a single minute of its careful characterization and build-up. Last and maybe most powerful is the performance of Jimmy Stewart. While he really shines in the final act, you cannot ignore his performance in the first 90 minutes. He is warm and gregarious, perfectly showing the selflessness of George Bailey. However, in the last act, Stewart takes the gloves off. Before we get into that, I want to say this. Before seeing this movie, I always felt Jimmy Stewart was a very good but ultimately cold actor. This is the feeling I got from the Hitchcock films. This movie turned that opinion on its head. Here, Stewart shows range, emotion, and power. When his life breaks down, the sadness in his eyes, the fervor in his desperation, and the depression in his physicality sold to me that this was a man beaten down for the last time. This was a performance that brought me and millions of others to tears, and Jimmy Stewart's intelligence, sensitivity, and respect cannot be understated here. As it turns out, Stewart's performance may not have been purely acting. Jimmy Stewart struggled with PTSD after his service in World War II. It stands to reason that he understood many of the feelings of depression and stress George was experiencing. They don't make performers like this anymore. Without the intensity and understanding of Stewart, it's hard to imagine the collapse of George Bailey's life would have been so believable. This movie is a masterpiece, worth a far better analysis than I can write. A movie innocent in its intentions, beautiful in its execution, and undeniably a movie made to help those who are struggling with suicide. While it's often described as a feel-good movie, I think that takes away its complexity. Personally, it makes me sad, and the ending is bittersweet, uplifting my spirits, but not allowing me to forget what almost was George Bailey's last night on Earth. You know, we've talked about a lot of sad subject matter today, so I'll leave you with the Christmas joy of the final scene. Enjoy.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town. That's a Christmas present from a very dear friend of mine.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.
Joy